Rollerball, the action-packed pinball game with the distinctly American touch. And welcome to Nostalgia, a chronological exploration of every NES game released in North America. I'm Mike.
I'm Sean.
I'm Joe. And I'm Joe, is what I normally
say.
Yeah,
I was like, whoa, hold on a minute.
It's been a couple weeks, I forgot.
Right. Last episode, I think we said you were out trying to find Sam. No luck there?
I found him, and I'm working on getting him back.
Great.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Good update.
I thought like you found him, but you just decided to leave him.
No, I found him, but for, I don't want to spook him, so I'm not telling anyone where he is. I'm the only one who knows where he is right now, and I will keep working on him, and maybe I'll convince him.
Okay. I like that.
It's the game with a distinctly American touch, but I just have to note right off the bat that there are 0 American game designers. This is HAL Labs with Satoru Iwata. This is weird, right? Obviously, the American touch is referring to like the Statue of Liberty and the Big Apple that's on the main menu screen and shit like that. But it feels weird that it has an American touch without any Americans working on it.
Well, I'm just glad to see like some representation of American culture in an NES game. Like it mostly is just stuff from like pre-industrial Japan and some German influences, but you never really get to see, the big US in video games.
Yeah, finally a game for Americans.
It's a good point though, Sean. Where is the Genghis Khan pinball game? Where is the Nobunaga pinball game? True,
but why have more of those when you've already gone to that well so often? You have a fresh well of American culture right in front of you.
You know what well they don't go to that often in NES video games?
What's that?
Pinball. Why all of a sudden is pinball back? It's back-to-back games of pinball after years of no pinball.
Maybe that's something they just like notice. Like, hey, we haven't gone to this well too often, only like twice now. So let's try again, but make it like if you had to make a pinball machine, but just put it on a cartridge.
Pinball, the launch game, the very first one that was years ago now, that was also made by HAL Laboratories. They don't want you to know that. They want you to think Nintendo made all those black box games. It's not true. So with that in mind, I think last time we had a pinball game, it was trying to not be pinball. It had all these other modes that were like, there was a ball and there were flippers, but for the most part, it was this competitive pinball style thing. The original pinball was a little more like video gamey pinball, where there was actually like at one point you play as Mario with the ball and in the bonus level and stuff like that. Where does Rollerball fall into the whole, like, is it pinball? Is it video game pinball? Or is it trying to, like, be more video game than pinball can be?
I think that, at least to what I noticed, it is not video gamey. Like, it is not something that a actual physical pinball machine couldn't do. Am I missing anything? Is there even in the multiplayer, which I'm sure we'll get to like eventually later, but like it's all stuff that you could physically build.
Well, nobody's ever built a pinball machine that long.
Yeah, so. No, this is like if you had like this is animation compared to live action in a way. Like it's not doing anything like super crazy, like having like mini games that completely change what pinball is. Everything is very pinball forward, but like I think it's like twice the length of what a pinball machine could possibly be. You've got actual little like sub missions now that you find in a lot of real pinball machines, but like it's like if you had a wish list of things and you decided to put all of them in the same pinball machine, that's sort of what you got here.
So, I mean, I'm a guy who does not play almost any actual pinball in his life, but why is this twice the length that a pinball machine could actually be? Like, why couldn't a pinball machine be this length? Is there technical limitations to the size?
Yeah, there's actually a physics equation that tells you how long a pinball machine can actually be.
I don't know if you're messing with
it's
me.
Pins theorem. Pins theorem.
Okay, yes. Okay, now I know you're serious.
You're right, Joe. You're right, because Sean might have misspoke there a little bit. It's not twice as large as a pinball machine is possible. It's just twice the standard pinball table. You know, like usually the size of a pinball screen would probably be like 2 of these screens, but because now there's 4 screens in this game, you just would picture a machine that's twice as long. I don't think there's anything stopping it from happening other than just people being like, that's bar
I can't see the
real
ball
estate
up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, though that too, I guess, true. I guess you don't scroll.
Which
Your
is
face doesn't
Pin's
scroll
theorem.
up the screen like it does in the game.
You guys are science deniers.
On the main menu, when you get to the select game screen, you are greeted with Skyscraper or Matchplay. And I'm not sure Skyscraper is a great word for the only real mode of pinball. I'm not sure if that's the way I would describe it. Skyscraper feels like a level, like you're going to unlock, I don't know, the Statue of Liberty next after you beat Skyscraper.
Yeah.
But then there's also like 2 blank screens below it, and it kind of feels like, PlayStation 2 style video games where like those modes are locked and you either have to put in cheat codes or beat these modes to unlock those other 2 modes. It's just that those 2 screens aren't used until you select your next option, in which it asks you how many players, and then conveniently all 4 screens are used to represent 1 player, 2 player, 3 player, or 4 player. I always have issues with menus, and this is my biggest gripe with this one, so I'm bringing it up.
Okay, yeah. I mean, the whole name convention is odd. Like, it's as if there was a second Rollerball, then it would, like, it sounds like Skyscraper is the name of the machine. Like, if you went to an arcade, Skyscraper would be the thing on the, like, display header with the score, and you would start playing. And maybe Rollerball is just, like, the name of the series. But as far as I know, like, this is the only map. This is the only machine, so...
No, but you're right.
Map
Map is what Skyscraper sounds like. Like, you're on this map.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that also plays a little bit into why I was kind of, I don't know, not unimpressed, but, like, I was let down a little bit by the name Skyscraper, because I thought that, like, Skyscraper would be actually something that is, like, absurdly unrealistic in real life. Like, I thought this was just going to keep going up and up and up, or down and down and down for like 30 flippers worth.
Right. I think
like,
it already is, but I get it.
Yeah, like, I don't know. It's like, it is maybe 1 more, like, level of flippers than I would expect to see on an actual pinball machine, right?
It's 2. It's 2 levels of flippers.
Is it like 4 total?
There's
4
or 5.
2 more than you would expect to see.
Yeah,
is what I'm saying.
That's right, because I forgot there's that top level that you don't start and that you can get up into that, like, bonus little area. So you're right, 2 more. But I don't know. I guess I was just thinking, like, oh, like, Skyscraper, like, they must have really gone, like, all out with this, where it's just like it's like an endless runner in pinball form.
I just want to clarify, like, what I would expect out of a pinball machine. Like, okay, so you've got the 2 at the bottom. That's a given. It's not pinball if you don't have the 2 at the bottom. Then, if you're lucky, you'll usually have, like, 1 off to the side that, like, it might be on the left and, like, it'll trigger at the same time as the left bottom one, or on the right and it'll trigger at the same time as the right bottom one. But this has the bottom, and it's got, like, 2 sets of, like, off to the side ones, and then it's got 2 additional screens. And then it's got the bonus one. So it's like, there's like 5 or 6 levels of flippers in this game, which is at least 3 or 4 more than I would expect. So this is absurd.
Yeah. And when I'm saying levels of flippers, which obviously is the correct term.
That is the scientific
for what we're
term.
saying. But I was talking about, like, just, like, other like duplicates of those bottom two flippers. Like the flippers off to the side, I wasn't counting, but I feel like I've seen
Those don't
pinball
count
machines.
flippers, yeah.
Even though I just said earlier that I never really played pinball, but I feel like I've seen pinball machines that have like a second version of those two bottom flippers that you can try and like stay up there now. But I've just never seen 3 or 4 of them.
Mike would know.
I don't think it really matters. The point is that the screen is really long and
Yeah.
and it's also divided.
Whatever.
So it's not like you're seeing all this information at once. It's divided into screens where on any particular screen there are mostly 2 flippers. So you're basically just playing one pinball machine at a time.
True.
Only that when it falls through, it just goes to another
it goes to
pinball
the next
machine
area.
or another pinball machine. You know, you're just like you're playing Theater of Magic, and then you're going over to Tales of the Arabian Nights.
Right. But the difference is there, if you do well enough on Tales of the Arabian Nights, you can get back to Theater of Magic by flipping yourself back up.
That sounds like a great digital pinball idea. Like somebody should be doing that.
Yeah,
I
just
think
like
they did
be
that here.
pasting together all the like real machines.
All right, hold on a second. Just to like reframe the original question of like, is this pinball or is this video game-y pinball? Like, I don't really think that question ever meant anything. So I'm gonna throw that one away, and instead I'm going to ask about, you know, we have lamented in the past that the other ones are about points and not necessarily what the great feature of the games I just talked about, Tales of the Arabian Nights and Theater of Magic are, is that those are like, there's a story and there's missions and you try to do specific things. And this game actually has that for the most part. Like there are things that you can do on each screen that don't tell a story necessarily, right? Like you're not trying to dock in Ellis Island or something. You're just lighting up different letters and hitting certain bumpers so that they all like disappear, so that bonus modes open up. But that is still more than what most of the pinball games have given us so far. And so what did we think about that?
Yeah, that was sort of my main criticism for the last pinball game that we played, was that it was still just like, there was no theme, it was just stuff. It was just bumpers and flippers and things that go, that like make noises when you go through them. But which is pinball. It's just not very interesting pinball, and this actually does have a theme, and it does have little subcategories and side missions, and yeah, you're not doing like, when you do those side missions, you're not like, oh, you're unlocking the cage and now the bonus points are indicative of like an animal on the loose or something like that. It's still just points and like bonuses, but I liked that there was more going on here.
Yeah, I noticed it too. I do think that I am just bad at playing pinball. Not even skill-wise, well, although that too, but like just in the fact that like I don't really know what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to keep the ball up. I see there's all these other things, but because I don't care about the score, like, I don't know. I did see all of these, like, you know, like up in the top, there's like, you open the gate or by hitting the same spot a certain amount of times, and I was trying to do that, but like, I'm just randomly, arbitrarily picking things to try and do. So maybe that's because I'm just not experienced enough with pinball to know, like, what am I supposed to be shooting for?
Joe, you mentioned skill, and I do think that not only is pinball a game of skill, it's not just luck, as people would like you to believe. There is a different level of skill here, though, because of the amount of screens. I feel like this is one of the longest games of pinball one can have. Are you kind of implying that you would lose often? I didn't find, especially as long as you stayed one screen ahead, this could go on for longer than you'd care to play.
No, I'm not saying I lost often. I'm just saying I was a little aimless a lot of the time.
Sure.
Like, okay, what should I be trying to do next? But no, I agree. I feel like it was like, I always felt like, because you always feel this little bit of a safety net too, where it's like, oh, I'm up at like the top like set of flippers, so as long as I keep up here, I'm good. And if I fall, no big deal. Just got to stay on this level for a bit. You know, you got a long time before you get to that bottom like final layer that you can't let the marble fall past, or else you actually lose a life.
Yeah, one of the things that like this game doesn't have the luxury of is it's like a bunch of pinball machines put together, but they're very short pinball machines, and they don't have like the kind of wild things you could do in an actual machine. Like, oh, you got it up on the rails, and there are like ball locks, but they're not as impressive to see. And you can end up in that top little bonus area sky high for, like Mike said, longer than you really find interesting. And it is the least interesting sub-map of the game. So yeah, I do agree with that.
Sean, you're bringing up a great point there, that like they're not even sorted by order of interesting, if you will. So like the grand stage at the top of the Skyscraper might not even be the most fun or dynamic version of it. And that is the one where like it spells out Skyscraper, and you have to hit these little targets on the side to open up the gate at the top. It's like, all right, cool, something's going on there. But I would prefer, if you make it all the way to the top, that's where like things just get crazy. Like, hit this and we go to multi-ball. Hit this and bumpers are locked. Hit this and flippers don't work. Like, go crazy there, because you've made it all the way to the top. There is no risk while you're up there, right? Like, you have 4 screens to go down. So start getting wacky with it.
Yeah. And that's, I think that does kind of bring, at least my opinion, kind of full circle to that first question of, is it video gamey? Or at least the way that I interpret that question, which is, and maybe people don't agree with this that are like really into pinball, because it's not as pure to pinball. So like, I understand that too, but like, you can get as wacky as you want because you're not limited by like actual physics. You can make crazy shit happen up in the very top section. Make it like actually impossible, awesome things. I don't know why that's kind of like always a thing I'm calling for on pinball games, and maybe it is because like I'm just not a big pinball fan, so I'm looking for this stuff. But like, I don't know, I feel like it's a missed opportunity to not have like some really, like, I can't come up with the good examples, but some really crazy things that you couldn't do in real pinball.
Well, sure, and we're seeing that now in video game pinball, the kind of examples you're talking about. So it took them a long time, but they got there. But like, the FX pinball machines that you have to buy like the individual pinball machines for, they have like a whole Star Wars theme of FX pinball machines where like the characters actually interact with your ball and do crazy things, and like story beats happen, and the X-Wing might do something to your ball. It's like, it needs that level of interaction just with the motif of a skyscraper, right? Like, I don't know, we're not even traveling up the skyscraper, really. Like, it doesn't feel like you're entering different rooms, or even like traveling up an elevator or something. I don't know. Not that would be interesting either.
There's a little motif there. Like, you start at ground level, and then you're kind of at the top of the skyscraper, and then you end up in the sky with a blimp, which, in New York City is a giant, like, rock island that you might see out of like BioShock instead of like it's got some feeling to that.
Only in the background though. Nothing's actually happening in the stage. Like, even the Statue of Liberty is just pixel art in the background.
You should be able to incorporating those things.
Yeah. I want to light that torch. Am I crazy for thinking that? Like, am I?
No.
I love that.
Like, turn the lights on and it's like, the building. Like,
yeah. And like, make that a mode, and then make a mode that's just more traditional anyways, like, I don't know. Think of like Lunar Pool. You could just play pool in that game, right? But you can also do all kinds of crazy stuff.
In that game, they literally let you turn off gravity so that it just goes nowhere, or you turn gravity to infinite and it never stops moving. The game is actually
it's actually the coefficient of friction, Mike, not gravity.
My bad.
I wonder if anyone listening to this thought that like our criticism was be like, there should be less gravity and more more fire in this game.
More lighting of torches.
Yeah, exactly.
The score never matters in video games for us, for whatever reason. I can't figure out why, but like, it never matters, and it definitely doesn't matter in pinball, which is weird because that's the whole thing. I think we can all agree there, right? Is that you're just hitting buttons to score points, and yet I still don't care. Like, I'd rather the objective be something like save the princess, even if it was in a pinball game. But what I'm getting at is that when you start the game, You select how many players, and if you're just selecting one player, but this is applicable for every mode, to indicate that you are player 1, it shows a 1 next to your score. And so when you start this game off, it looks like your score, with all the zeros filled in, is 100 million. Yeah, it's 100 million. And it's like, that just, to me, it automatically like diminished my feeling of score, because I'm only scoring like 300 points or whatever at a time. So to start with like 100 million, theoretically, of course, not true. Just shows how silly points are in these games. Unless you're one of those people who really cares about it, but I feel like that's a smaller audience.
It sounds like, with how this kerning issue has affected your experience of the game, that you are one of those people.
You've caught me red-handed, but no, I'm not. I'm not one of those people. I promise you, I don't even remember.
Like we're saying,
what
like it's like some dirty thing to be. Like, I'm not one of those people. I swear.
But no, it is weird. I did notice that, but I don't know how damning to the game it is.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that because I literally didn't even like glance at the score.
In the Japanese version of the game, the left player's animal in the 2-player mode of this game is an elephant, and the right player's is a giraffe. But when they brought it over to the English version, the giraffe was changed to a donkey, to, I guess, like make a commentary on American politics. And
yeah, and even if not a commentary, I guess if they're saying like, oh, this is the American game, here are their 2 major political parties represented in pinball, like just like what everyone wants.
Now I would really like a competitive pinball game that is just like, a presidential debate. And that's what you do. I don't know what the little sub missions would be. Maybe it's like you have some way of causing the other person to like have a gaffe.
Yeah,
that'd be
or like you can
fun.
speak like after your time is up for like a couple seconds, or you can like interrupt.
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you
that's
hit, like,
multi-ball.
if you hit the right, multi-ball, exactly.
Okay, but Joe, you brought up a pretty interesting thing just now, which is that we just played Rollerball, which was the other pinball game, not to be confused with this completely different game called Rollerball.
Oh my god!
Which
rock
one?
And roll.
Yeah, which one had the more American touch? This one that is about skyscrapers and has a little light mention of the Statue of Liberty, or Rollerball, which actually had like a 1950s America feel with the rock and roll and the diner and the cheeseburgers and stuff like that. Like, maybe Rollerball not only was released a month earlier, but also ate its lunch by stealing the American theme, because that game in Japan was remember, that was Pac-Man.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't remember anything on the back of Rollerball's box saying anything about America, so I give it to this one.
Yeah, that could have been any culture.
It's that easy.
Yeah,
folks.
I haven't been everywhere in the world. There might be other cultures that are exactly like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like desperately searching for the Rollerball like back of the box now, just to see if I can prove you wrong.
That would suck.
No, remember, that was the one that's back of the box, was pinball is famous in video game history, which just
that's
can't
right.
be true.
Wait, that wasn't Rollerball?
No, that was Rollerball. Pinball is
okay.
famous in video game history, which just can't be true. They weren't talking about anything American, so I guess you're right. Yeah, in fact, they even had they had all those other modes: sports pinball, 9-ball, battle flipper. This one's only mode is a Matchplay, which is a 2-player mode with a much smaller screen than the 4 screens on the Skyscraper mode. And in it, it's a little different the way they do their 2-player mode. It's like both players have a certain amount of points, and the first player to lose all of his or her points loses the game. It's not about like dropping the ball into your goal, if you will.
Yeah, it's also you're on the same side of the screen too.
And that's where you get the weird like political mascots.
Yes, right. One of you is the elephant, one of you is the donkey.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're on the same side of the screen, so it's also not like it is one-on-one, but it feels a little more like you're both just competing to stay alive. Granted, you can definitely like screw the other person over by knocking the ball or a bunch of balls into their zone, but it's not as like direct. You're not facing off against like opposite each other like you would be in like air hockey.
Yeah, which is I guess more rock and ball. And I guess there's a little bit of like a strategy there because you can rack up points if you've got the ball on your side the whole time. But I don't know. I didn't have somebody to play with, so I can only think about this mode theoretically.
Yeah, no, I played against nobody and won every time. So, but I did play 2-player. It would have been cool to have a friend.
Wow, we have to get you guys friends.
Hey, I play a lot of 2-player.
Yeah, that's true. Mostly the Zapper games, though, which is also kind of funny.
That's true.
Because they're not really 2-player. You're just inviting people
Yeah,
over
you just
and
pass it
shooting
back
the
and
gun.
Archon, I played.
Well, that's an essential 2-player game only.
That's true. I mean, I don't disagree. Still essential.
There you go. Question for you guys that is not necessarily rollerball, rock and ball related, but it's
video game related.
No, yeah, actually that's true. It's true. It's not video game related unless you consider pinball part of the most famous part of video games.
Yes.
And so this is a pinball question. Is it like satisfying to lose in pinball when you don't have control over how the ball exits? And what I mean by that, what I mean by that is not like, oh, should you be able to stop it always? It's the fact that there are 2 exits on the side that you can't control, that they can just fall through. Shouldn't it just be the middle that is the open lane?
I mean, I think it's not just this game that does it, and you're right. This is a pinball question. So yeah, I think that those are there to eat quarters, and not particularly any like satisfaction-based game design. So I think for a pinball machine to be profitable, it does need those side column voids, and I hate them. And no, it doesn't make me feel good to play.
I also get very frustrated with those. I do wonder if I were good at pinball, if I would be more of the opinion of like, okay, it went down there, I had no control, but if I think back far enough in my game, I did have control. Like there was some point where I could have done something different where the ball wouldn't have gone over
I think
there.
at that point, like causality and butterfly effect just like take over, they take the wheel, and there's no way to strategize for that.
We'll have to see. I'm going to have to get better at pinball and let you know.
I agree with Sean. I believe it's there to eat quarters, but since it's not satisfying game design, and it's clearly for gambling, which pinball was considered part of and was outlawed for a while, why would it come over to the video game side of things? Is it just a holdover? Is there nobody smart enough in video games to just be like, yeah, it's just bad design, and for my video game that doesn't eat quarters but cost a one-time fee, I'm going to eliminate those and make it so that only you can be responsible for your game over?
I think it's a holdover.
Yeah, I still think that this, like, at least the way that I'm thinking about this is not the way that, is not actually what the pinball market was, where, like, oh, you want this, like, new version of pinball that works in video games. I think that probably this exists because it's hard to have, like, an actual pinball machine in your house. It's easy to have a cartridge, so maybe more people that would buy this game would want just, like, pure pinball, flaws and all.
Yeah.
You know?
Because, unless you've got, like, if you've got some actual reason to change it up, like, it's sort of like playing bowling, or bowling with the bumpers on. Like, yeah, it's impossible to play a competitive game, if you're not just bowling strikes and spares the entire time. So the bumpers aren't really making it easier for an amateur to play, in the same way that the sides of the pinball machine aren't. You know what? I kind of lost the plot halfway through this, but I'm going to stick by that it's kind of like the bumpers in bowling, and I'm going to end it there.
Because once you let go of the bowling ball, you don't have control over the ball anymore. It could go right in the gutter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's this butterfly effect.
But you threw it.
Yeah, no.
Well,
no,
through causality and wind.
Who knows what could happen on that lane after you've let go of the ball?
It's pure random chance.
Right.
Yeah.
You've pretty much picked game over on any bowling alley the second you walk in.
Right, that's true. That's why I don't even go. Someone will bowl that lane if I'm not there.
All right. You can do one thing to this NES pinball game, Rollerball, to make it better. Not make it on the essential games list or not change it permanently in a way. You can just alter one thing about it. What are you changing?
Well, for me personally, I don't know if I would say this is necessarily making it better, but for me, for what I would want out of a Skyscraper pinball machine, I want 40 more of these layers of pinball in this thing. I want it to just be like endless, and like maybe you're losing points in other ways and stuff. But I want it to be crazy. You would have to have some way to like make it a little more challenging because it would be really hard to lose. But yeah, that's
Joe. I'm gonna work off your idea, and I like that because I was gonna say more screens too, just to be funny. But like, yeah, it's the Empire State Building, so it's 102 floors. So there's 102 screens, but you only have 8 hours because it's an 8-hour workday. So you only have 8 hours to get to the 102nd screen, and that's the risk.
Oh yeah, like there you go. That could be the goal: is getting the further up you get, like
and I think that there should be floors every 10 floors or so that are just save points, and if you there's like one little hole, and you can that's where you can save, and if you can't get in that hole, you're just not saving this hour.
Right,
like
that's
that.
where
Also,
you get your promotion. On every 10th floor, you get your promotion until you become the CEO who naturally sits up on the 102nd floor.
Right. But also in like a kind of reverse to the save point, I think to solve the problem that you're never at the bottom and therefore like it's very hard for you to lose, there can be holes that you drop in that are lost, you lose.
Yeah.
So then like there is some danger. You're trying to get as high as you can without falling into one of the pits or to one of the spots that's like a dead zone.
Yeah, the pits are like, recession. You've been
yeah. Yes, I love the that it has. You're right. It does. No matter what we do, it does have to like be one-to-one analogous to like just going to work
in the Big Apple.
My change is similar in that it's a change to the theming, but I think I'm just going to go with my original idea of just reframing this entire thing as a political debate, and having the little micro objectives have to do with what you might do in a debate. So I'm going with that.
If I was going to make this game better with just one small change, I would make it so that when you're on the select game screen, there were only 2 screens to choose from and not an additional 2 blank ones. So you would know that there aren't modes that are going to be unlocked.
Yeah, I would agree, but I would add to that every button on the controller should just move the cursor down on the menu.
No matter what you do.
Yeah.
Well, since we can't change the game, we're going to judge the game based on how it is in the Essential Games list. All right, so I'm starting this Rollerball. Well, one thing that I'd like to address, because the Essential Games list is your opportunity to just say things and people aren't supposed to interject because it's your vote. The title doesn't feel like very pinball-y to me. Rollerball was something that Sean and I spitballed last episode that would be about like a roller
70s
derby.
movie.
Yeah. Like, you and a bunch of people in a line fighting another people in line, all with skates on, roller skates specifically. That game didn't happen here. Instead, we got a pinball game that, sure, the ball rolls, but I'd call it ball roller in that case. I wouldn't call it rollerball. But they went for that, and they failed on the execution of the title. They failed on the execution of the title screen, and they kind of... I don't want to say they failed on the game, because they did deliver. It's pinball, and it works, and if you like, NES-style video game pinball, you're here to be entertained. But I don't think there's really enough here to warrant any additional discussions about the Essential Games list. It's just another pinball entry. You're going to see another baseball entry. You're going to see another shmup entry. This just falls in line with those things. It's not doing anything above water. So no, it's not on the Essential Games list. Sean?
I think that Rollerball is probably the most whole pinball game that we've played. Like I think it's my favorite pinball game, but it's a pretty low bar to clear, even though I don't dislike any of them either. But yeah, it's not essential.
Joe.
Yeah, I'll also say this functions perfectly fine as a pinball game. It works well. Maybe it has one kind of additional quirk that you wouldn't see in other pinball games, but in the end, I think it's inevitably will just blend into the other 700 games on the NES or however many there are, and also just blend into other pinball experiences. So I don't think it stands out in any way that would warrant it becoming an essential game.
The format of this show has really changed because I am now going to do the sequels and spin-offs because I totally forgot about it before we went into the essential games list. So real fast, not that you should expect sequels and spin-offs, and I'm not about to list every video game pinball thing, but I think it's worth mentioning that HAL as a company wouldn't stop making pinball games here. They made the original pinball that was part of the NES launch, they made Rollerball, but they're going to just continue to make pinball games on Nintendo systems and Nintendo handhelds for a long time. Just listing off a few, we have Kirby's Pinball Land, Pokemon Pinball, Revenge of the Gator. I'm sure there are
Mike?
more.
It's kind of pathetic. It sounds like they've got a real subconscious desire to just make a pinball machine, and I haven't heard of them actually doing that. They just keep making video pinball games. Grow a pair and make a pinball machine.
Yeah, I think the same thing about shmups. I'm like, these people just want to make planes that shoot other things, and they just keep making video games.
That's what I think about George Lucas and Star Wars, is that he clearly just wanted to start an evil empire out in space and just didn't have the balls to do it.
Yeah, this is just his fanfic about how it would go.
Next week, the fan fiction of nostalgia continues as we continue to speculate on what games will be like. We're going to play Super Spike V-Ball. A little more obvious about what this game is going to be, right? Any wild
V-ball?
Guesses?
No.
I got a notification.
Yeah, I was pausing for that, but I guess we'll just leave that in.
I thought maybe you were getting texted the answer.
Yeah. I think V-Ball, it's vertical. It's vertical pinball. It's not going forward and up a slope so that the ball comes down. It's more reverse pachinko. You have to get the ball up from the bottom.
I should save this for next week's episode, but it's kind of crazy that Super Spike V-Ball has two things in its title that other Nintendo consoles would wind up using, Super for Super Nintendo, all games. This one would just be called Spike V-Ball, and then it would get re-released on Super Nintendo as Super Spike V-Ball. And then V-Ball kind of sounds like Virtual Ball, which would be for the Virtual Boy. So it's just kind of crazy that Nintendo probably saw Super Spike V-Ball and was like, oh, we could start working on the Super Nintendo and the Virtual Boy right now based on this game.
This is the game that actually gave them the idea for both.
Yeah, absolutely. They started going right into R&D from here. Actually, R&D started with the development of Super Spike V-Ball.
Wow.
All right, join us next week where we actually talk about the game for real and not stupid shit like this.
Hey.